And I saw this, this thing that Ron DeSantis did that was good. And it reminded me how everybody should be saying things like he's saying and nobody is, and how completely feckless and impotent and weak our entire national Republican Party is, and how, like, for a lot of Americans, we're looking at the situation and going, things are bad. They're bad culturally, they're bad socially, they're bad politically, they're bad religiously, like whatever, like things are bad. And we don't have a confidence in our country that we might have had, like I'd had my whole life, and things keep getting worse. And there are no Republicans out there saying anything about it at all. They didn't even say anything about it during campaign season. And I just feel like I'm taking crazy pills that these people, their job, which is not my job, their job is like to lead a political movement, and they're just nowhere to be seen. They're never talking about the issues that matter. They may respond to like corrupt media inquiries. Sometimes they usually do a bad job with it. Like, where are they? What are they doing? If we can just take it back to where the Republican Party was in 2012.
Okay.
We saw a situation where President Obama had had a rough first term. The country was experiencing things very similar to what they're experiencing now. You had a national, massive populist movement in the Tea Party. Unlike almost every other populist movement, it was a principled populist movement, which is just like a gift to the Republicans that is unimaginable. And first off, Mitch McConnell openly states his goal is to destroy the Tea Party, like sort of takes the victories that they gave the House and the Senate, but says his goal is to destroy the Tea Party, and does a pretty good job of destroying the Tea Party, but a Pyrrhic victory, because then you have Donald Trump later. But anyway, the Republican Party, in its wisdom, and the entire conservative establishment, including the conservative establishment media, get behind Mitt Romney as the nominee, even though the signature issue for 2012 is Obamacare. And Mitt Romney had created Romney Care in Massachusetts. It was just like such a failure, unimaginable failure. Anyway, at that time, Mitt Romney, kind of a decent, nice guy, gets turned into Hitler by corporate media. And it radicalizes a lot of the Republican Party voters, and they just realize there's nothing they can do to appease the leftists who control the media and the establishment. And they realize that they need someone who's going to take on the media as the enemy that they are. And so in comes Donald Trump. He does a great job with this. You would think that like 75% of the Republican Party might learn from this and emulate it. And instead, we've got like one governor in Florida doing it. So it's great that Ron DeSantis learned the good lessons from the Trump campaign and presidency. But it's a little frustrating that it's only Ron DeSantis when he's saying things that everybody could say, like, hey, these social media companies, which are much more powerful than our government, seem to be hostile to freedom of the press and freedom of speech and freedom of, it's not that hard to say any of this. Like, I don't have a particular idea about what the response is. My own personal idea would be to carpet bomb Silicon Valley. You may have other ideas about how to handle the threats posed by big tech. I don't really care what the answer is, but like to not say anything, to not do anything, to not punch back in any way, it's just insane to me.
Yeah, I don't think the threat's as big as you do, but I as a political matter, I think you're right. There is no coherent answer, any answer from most Republicans, and they're not talking about it at all.
Well, but I also want to say, too, it relates to the issue of punching back against corrupt corporate media, because you might remember that first debate that Romney had where you had the media helping out Obama. Candy Crowley, I think was her name.
Yeah.
She helped Obama by lying about what he had said about a terrorist attack. And he came back that second debate completely chastened, he being Romney. I mean, he was weak. He was so scared. He was, he should have been going for the jugular. He came out of that first debate strong, and instead he kind of came I might be mixing up my debates, but anyway,
Yeah,
I just remember like he had some failures rooted in his inability to realize that the media were not his friends, but his enemies. And he's still struggling with that right now.
Right. But anyway, so let's talk about the lame duck session. We have already now passed I forgot what the bill was called, like Protecting Marriage Act or something like that.
Yeah, the misnamed Protecting Marriage Act. And I mean, nothing in the bill protects marriage. It was billed as a way to protect same-sex marriage. Nothing in the bill affects the redefinition of marriage, which was redefined erroneously, by the way, by the Supreme Court in the Obergefell decision. What it does is make it much easier to go after religious people who do not accept the radical redefinition of marriage to include same-sex couples or other groupings. And, this is an issue that affects public life in many ways. And yes, it passed with the full-throated love and support of 12 establishment beloved politicians in the Republican Party. And yeah, they waited until after the midterm elections to completely murder their own base and sabotage them. And for what?
And the thing is, they had an out. I mean, they could have said this bill does not protect religious liberty and we can't vote for it. We're pro-gay marriage. We think it's great, but this does not protect adoption. This does not protect business owners who are Christian, and not just Christian, who are Orthodox and religious. And they had an out, and they still went forward.
And then they got another out. They had another out after it. So they mess up. They create this like Roe v. Wade kind of legal dystopia with passing this bill, with initially, moving forward with this bill. And then Mike Lee throws them a life jacket rescue of an amendment that would explicitly protect religious freedom. And he just needed a few of them to sign on to it, and they didn't.
I don't understand it.
What did Mitch McConnell do to keep this bill from coming to a vote? What did he do to keep 12 of his beloved candidate quality senators from voting for it? Did he punish them? Did they lose committee assignments? Did they face any repercussions at all whatsoever from the brilliant mastermind who you're not allowed to criticize, Mitch McConnell? What did he do to keep his conference in line and protect the people who elect Republicans? Because I'm pretty sure the answer is not only nothing, but he actually helped make it difficult to have success of amendments.
I know he didn't vote for it, but did he come out against it in any way? I'm sure first of all, if you've seen that man utter a single word on television other than his ritual malediction of the bad orange man, I would love to hear what it is, because I never hear or see him in any capacity leading any kind of, political movement or cause other than his hatred of the candidates that his voters pick or the bad orange man. That's the only thing he seems to care about. Other than that, I've never heard him make an eloquent defense of the values that his base supports. And like I said, there are all sorts of like legislative maneuvers you can do to make it easier to pass an amendment, like Mike Lee's amendment. It had a very high threshold of what you had to get in order for it to be for it to work. It's just insane. I think he wanted it to pass because it's nationally, it's probably polls well, and it would make Republicans, in his mind, make Republicans look like they're compromising and not this party that's going to be saying no to everything. So, yeah, I mean, I don't, I can't argue with anything you've said there.
Okay, then it's not just the social issues. It's also the financial issues. All that the leadership of the Republican Party was doing yesterday was talking about how they're really excited to pass a big omnibus spending bill next month. There are so few resources that Republicans have without control of the Senate and not yet having control of the House for accomplishing what they want. And being able to say no to certain bad spending bills is one of the only things they could say. And instead, they're out like yucking it up at the White House yesterday about how they're going to do nothing to move back any of the disastrous things that have been accomplished through Biden's budgets. Like, they're not doing anything. I don't even know what is it that they think their job is.
I don't know.
I'm sorry,
I don't know
what's the problem that's going to happen? Are they going to punish Republicans by not voting for them? That's already happening. Like, maybe the reason why Republicans aren't winning anything is I literally don't know what they stand for. Do you know what they like? What is the case for voting Republican right now?
The only case I would take, the only reason I would want to vote for Republicans that they would stop Democrats from doing what they're doing. But that has typically been the case for me. I realize that that's
like
not
these
enough
two examples, you can vote with them to pass a attack on religious people, or you can vote with them to pass an omnibus spending bill, which, by the way, Mitch McConnell did say there was widespread agreement among him and his cronies that they would pass an omnibus spending bill next month, just for your knowledge.
Into it. But right now, I'm sorry, you have a lot of these candidates. They essentially sound like Democrats who go to church, and they just want to spend money. And anytime you mention anything about bringing, economic conservatism, they laugh at it and call it Reagan zombieism. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not just blaming them. I think.
So I was talking with some very high level people yesterday in DC who were wondering why nobody seemed to want, why nobody in DC was helping Herschel Walker win his Senate seat. And I think I had told you before the midterms that if Republicans didn't need him to win that seat, they would probably rather he lose, meaning by that Mitch McConnell, the establishment, not the Republican Party. And I think that turned out to be pretty prescient. I'm not saying that Mitch is being any more open. Wait, did I say Mitt Romney just now?
Yeah, no, you said, but then you said Mitt, which I like. Mitch
McConnell is what I meant to say. That I don't think, I'm sure he's doing some performative, like giving of money or whatever, but I don't think anyone in the DC GOP wants Herschel to win, and they're not acting like they want him to win. Right. But these people were just kind of commenting on how if you are a Mitch McConnell style Republican, things have gone pretty well for you this year. You didn't have the goal of having Trump endorsed or Trumpy or Trumpistic candidates winning, and you maybe behaved in such a way to ensure that they wouldn't. I mean, this most dramatically is obvious in the Blake Masters race in Arizona, where just a little bit of help would have easily put him over the edge, or a little bit of competence in how in how that help was provided. And I have had conversations with people where they openly admit that they want to bring the Republican Party back to where it was in 2015. Mm-hmm. And they say it as if it's not an absurd, ludicrous thing to say. They say it as if they don't understand that the Republican voter is never going back to the party of Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney, ever. Like, I don't know how they could be blind to this. I think they really think, because they have been able to have some successes, they were able to undermine the Trump administration. And I'm talking about they, meaning Republican establishment at this point. They were able to undermine the Trump administration. They were able to play their games in the midterm elections. They're feeling really good right now. But I think the sooner they realize, and I think they get this a little bit, but the sooner they realize it's either like Trump or DeSantis or no one. Like, those are your options. Mike Pence and Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley can get put in conservative media all they want. They're not going to win the nomination, or if they do, it's going to be a brutal defeat. It's basically the future of the party is in the Trump or DeSantis mold, or it's nothing at all. I want to say, I've been noticing, because you see some less than trustworthy Republican establishment figures praising Ron DeSantis because they think he can take out the orange man, you're seeing some response from conservative Republicans of then turning on DeSantis. And I think it needs to be said, it is not Ron DeSantis's fault that bad people are playing games and using him to go after Trump. He's smart enough to know that that's what's going on. And he may not be strong enough to take on the forces that you need to take on to be a good Republican presidential candidate. But I just want to say it's not his fault that people are clearly using him in a bad faith way to go after Trump. Honestly, I think there's been enough
for the movement.
There's been enough performative gatekeeping on the right for the next 200 years. And
but what if it's not performative? I mean, if I'm upset about something that someone does on my own side, I'm not allowed to say anything because it's performative or because the left will agree with me.
I don't think
and obviously
that.
I'm talking about like what I said, Trump and Nick Fuentes and all that. Opie Himmler.
No, I think no, I think it's fine to criticize anyone for whatever you want to criticize them for. I'm speaking more of what I said earlier. I don't see Mitch McConnell advocating Republican ideas or issues or concerns. He's kind of proud of not doing it. You remember he said in the midterms, we don't need to have a policy plan. It's just sufficient to win the Senate by saying that Democrats are bad. Well, obviously not true, Mitch McConnell. But boy, does he rush out to the TV cameras every time he can talk about his nemesis, the orange guy. I'm just sick of it. He gets to talk about the bad orange man doing something stupid after he talks about 1,000 more important things than that. Like, I am sorry, but an ill-advised, like, accidental dinner isn't in the top 1,000 issues facing the country. And it's not even close. So I'll let someone like you, who's like a reasonable, thoughtful, operating in good faith person, say something like that and agree with you even. I'm not ready to hear it from the band of braying idiots who can't focus and prioritize to save their lives. I mean, they are prioritizing. Their main issue is destroying Trump voters. And so that's what they get up in the morning and do. But I wish their main issue was actually tackling the problems this country faces that we elect them to handle. So that's why I call it performative.
Okay. Anything else on hatred of Republicans? I think that I want to talk about it.
I hate the Republican Party so much. I want them to be destroyed. And I think one of my gifts in punditry is that I just naturally have the mood of a lot of people. Like, I think the Republican Party thinks it's okay right now. I think all the same people are being reelected to continue to lead it in the path it's going. And I don't think they recognize, like, I haven't felt like this since 2015. I think that there are tens of millions of good, patriotic Americans who love their country very much, and they want to stop the attacks on the country that are coming from, ideas on the left. And the number one barrier to taking those on right now seems to be this horrifically bad Republican leadership. And so while it's not healthy to have hatred of that, like more than you hate the ultimate, or more than you love the ultimate goal, it is a necessary thing. Like, nothing good is going to happen so long as these same establishment regime figures are keeping and suppressing down the political desires of tens of millions of Americans. And so it absolutely is an existential crisis, the need to get rid of or to like, these people need to learn some very tough lessons. And unless they do, nothing good is going to happen for the country.
Just don't know who's supposed to take over for Mitch and is going to do a good job, or who is supposed to be in leadership now. Someone needs to be leadership. Someone is the elite.
What are you getting from Mitch McConnell right now?
I don't get anything other than
like
competent.
I would put a bag of bricks in there over Mitch McConnell right now. Listen,
I still appreciate, and I know he wasn't the only one, a lot of what he did on judges and helping what I think was a great victory for conservatism, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So, but do I wish that there was someone better there? Of course I do. Of course I do. I just don't know who that person is supposed to be.
There's a bit of Stockholm syndrome here. And I've said it before. I wrote a book with Carrie Severino about the good work that Mitch McConnell did here. So I'm not going to deny that there was good work there. The idea that you have to accept absolute, ludicrously bad leadership because of these judges is absurd when you think about how nobody talks about Chuck Schumer being good with judges. And he has a better record than Mitch McConnell on judges. He gets his judges through, he gets justices through, but he also gets all the other Democrat agenda through. Like
the amount of pressure.
To pick one thing here. McConnell is smart enough to be able to do other things too. He chooses not to do them.
I want to know the name of the person who's going to do a better job. That's all. I think it's a fair question. It's like you want to topple the regime, but you got to be careful about who the regime change brings in, right? Your hand in your hand. You're very frustrated. I don't.
No, I'm actually pondering it. I think it's a good. Like, I actually kind of liked that it was Rick Scott who did the challenge to Mitch McConnell, the first challenge in 16 years, because it wasn't going to be successful. Rick Scott is sort of like a wealthy and independent enough person that he can take on the onslaughts of a Mitch McConnell. And whoever the actual person is who needs, like, obviously Mitch McConnell's on his way out. Nobody likes him. He just rules by fear and power. He, controls like a large part of DC through money and fear, which should shut me up right now. But for some reason, it's not, because I haven't, because I'm immune to this.
You make him sound like Hussein, Saddam Hussein, or Stalin or something.
But I do think it can't be McConnell, and it can't be one of his loser cronies who are all jockeying for that position. It has to be someone else. Like, I kind of wish more senators would drop their insane ideas that they're going to be president someday and really embrace that Senate role like Mitch McConnell has, or like a Chuck Schumer has, where they don't want to become president. They just want to control the Senate. Now would be a good time for some people to start being more realistic. Although I do think that a lot of everyone in America hates Mitch McConnell. The only town where he's loved is this town by the establishment.
He does win elections occasionally, though, right? In his home state of Kentucky. All right.
He lost the Rand Paul race where he tried to keep Rand Paul from being elected senator. But I do think people sometimes just hate the person, and they know they're bad and they want them out, but people should send in ideas, and the ideas should be people who legitimately could win. So that means someone who would get the support of not just the Tea Party type people or the newly elected Republican senators, but also some of those moderate or establishment squish types. They need to understand how to control a very independent-minded caucus, which is one of the things Republicans suffer from that Democrats, I don't think, have quite such an issue with. Like, they've got two senators who occasionally faint toward not going in with everybody else, and they don't know how to handle it. Republicans they're all a mess. They're all independent. But I would love to hear ideas from everybody.
Yes, please send your mail to, what is it? radio@thefederalist.com.